All right, fam, we're going to go and get started with our lesson 38 of Trusting God. The title of this lesson is called The Righteousness of God. And this is a really great lesson just because, what we have to understand is, the righteousness of God is completely flip opposite, the thought process, the what he believed, it's so flip opposite of what we believe in the world. And this story is a really, really, really great. When I say a really great example of just how different God is with his thoughts and his judgments. His judgments are not like ours. They're not. And so we're going to go ahead and get into it. We'll talk about these things. A really great story of Judah and Tamar. It's a story really, when I read, really kind of blew my mind a little bit to read and understand. And so hopefully it does the same for you and gives you the right type of blowing up of mind, blowing up of lies, and helps you see the truth a little bit greater about who God is and who he is towards us. So Isaiah 55:8 says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, nor are your ways my ways, declares the Lord." Now this is something that every last man, every last human being has to come to understand in their life, or you're never going to understand the truth. You're never going to understand the truth if you don't understand that when you read it, when you receive it, when you hear it, it should be completely flip-flop opposite of the way we think in our ways. That's the truth. Because he says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, nor are your ways my ways." So the way you think is not the way he thinks. And the way that what we believe is the right way to go is not what he believes the right way to go. His ways are not our ways. It's the truth. And so let's go ahead and get into this story. Judah and Tamar. I like starting off with this scripture because it gives a basis of just understanding that his thoughts are not our thoughts and his ways are not our ways. We're opposite. We're different. And so we have to be transformed into his thoughts and his ways. And so you have to understand, because we are so 180 different, we have a long way to go to understanding righteousness of God. We really do. It's a huge transformation to be made from us, for real. So let's keep it going. So Genesis 38:1-3 says, "And it came about that time that Judah departed from his brothers and visited a certain Adullamite, whose name was Hira. Judah saw there a daughter of a certain Canaanite whose name was Shua, and he took her and went into her. So she conceived and bore a son, and he named him Er." And so we're going to go down a couple verses. I don't want to, this is a whole chapter, so there's a couple verses that don't prolong the story as we need to. I would implore you to go back and read for yourself. I'm just giving you the basis of the story for us to teach today about the righteousness of God. So Genesis 38:6-8 says, "How now Judah took a wife for his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. But Judah's firstborn, was evil in the sight of the Lord, so the Lord took his life. Then Judah said to Onan, 'Go into your brother's wife and perform your duty as a brother-in-law to her, and raise up offspring for your brother.'" Raise up offspring for your brother. And so we'll keep going to the story, but let's talk about what's happened so far. And so basically Judah's firstborn was was given to Tamar, right? But was seen to do evil in the sight of the Lord. So the Lord saw him as an evil person, saw somebody who was deliberately evil, deliberately disobedient, like he was an evil person. Like, evil was so different than ignorant. He wasn't ignorant. No, he was evil. And when you're evil, that means you know the right way to go, and you deliberately choose evil. You're evil. And so he took his life. Then Judah said to Onan, so his other son, "Go into your brother's wife and perform your duty as a brother-in-law to her, and raise up offspring for your brother." Now, like I said, the Lord's ways are not our ways, and his thoughts are not our thoughts. Okay, and so the brother dies. But we have to understand this is that, and we'll talk about this more about oneness, because oneness is a huge thing about God. If you don't understand, when you understand oneness and what it really means to be one in this life, and he says that two flesh become one. And so you understand that Tamar made herself one with They were one flesh. But now catch this though. We'll go down the line. But you have to understand that my seed is of my flesh. My seed is of my flesh. And all of my kids are of my flesh. And so they're all the same in flesh in God's eyes. That's why it is immoral in God's eyes for siblings to have sex with each other, because you're both the same nakedness, the same oneness of flesh. That's wickedness. It's lewdness. And so we have to understand, though, in God's eyes, that and Tamar became one after she had died because he had brothers alive still, that she was still given to that family, because there was still a oneness of her alive was still through that family. So she was still given that family. And so Judah says to his other son, "No, you go into your brother's your brother's wife, or your brother's ex-wife at this point, because she died, and perform your duty as a brother-in-law to her, and raise up offspring for your brother." And so this time too, you understand, in God's eyes, which is really the truth, the real truth. If you really even think about even simply of DNA and what it really means in this world, like, come on now, we have children. I have children. All of my children are the same DNA. They're just different variations. And so he's telling him, now go into your sister, go into your sister-in-law, go into your brother's wife. And so they raise up offspring for him. Raise up offspring for him. And so let's keep going, because that's not that essential to the story, but it's just more talking about today about how God's ways are not our ways and his thoughts are not our thoughts. They're not. And you got to let those things go for real. If you want to understand what it means to be right by God, you really have to dig deeper into what is it what is righteousness in his eyes. Because just because you think what you're doing is right does not make it righteous in God's eyes. And so Genesis 38, 9 to 10, we'll keep going this story. It says that Onan knew that the offspring would not be his. So when he went into his brother's wife, he wasted his seed on the ground in order not to give offspring to his brother. But what he did was displeasing in the sight of the Lord, so he took his life also. And so he was supposed to raise up offspring for his brother through his brother's wife after his brother had died. But what does Onan do? He acts out of selfishness, and he decides, no, I'm not going to go into her. I'm not going to ejaculate into her. I'm going to let it fall to the ground so that she doesn't have kids, because I know that these kids are not going to be mine. And so he was moving in selfishness. And what did the Lord do? So he took his life also. And so we understand that this story and these things, this is so much more proof about God, is that he looks at the heart. He is not looking at the physical matter. He is looking at the heart behind what you're doing. And so the reason why he pronounced this man and took his life, the reason why he pronounced this man to death, the reason why he took his life was because his heart behind what he was doing is that he was moving in selfishness. He was deciding that he wasn't giving himself to God's way. So this the thing is that yes, he wouldn't have sex with the girl like he was told to do. But this is why we always say that partial obedience is disobedience. Partial obedience is disobedience. He didn't fully do what he was supposed to do. And so what happened? The Lord took his life, and that's the truth. Two things to learn from this. One, it's the heart behind the marriage that matters. Yes, we're talking about ejaculating right now. I'm talking about ejaculating on the ground and not ejaculating this woman. It wasn't about that, though. The reason why he was pronounced to death is because he literally says Onan knew that the offspring would not be his. So when he went to his brother's wife, he wasted his seed on the ground in order to give offspring, and in order not to give offspring to his brother. And so literally out of selfishness, he decides to not ejaculate in this woman. But it was done out of selfishness. Out of selfishness. But this is why you have to say, I'm trying to tell you, you have to turn off your eyes about a lot of things. It wasn't about sex that he was pronounced to be dead. It wasn't because he pulled out that he was pronounced to be dead. It was because of selfishness he was pronounced to be dead. And so let's keep going real quick, because I got more to talk about when it comes to selfishness. We got some scriptures to go into about this. And so it says in Philippians 2, 3-4, do nothing from selfishness or empty conceit, but with humility of mind regard one another as more important than yourselves. Do not merely look out for your own personal interests, but also for the interest of others. This man's brother had no offspring. He had no offspring. And he was given one job: to selflessly give your seed to his wife. so that he would have offspring in his life. And what did he decide? He decided to do it out of selfishness. And so, yeah, he said, oh, you know what? I'm going to have sex with my brother's wife, but I'm not actually going to do what I'm here to do for the reason why I'm actually here. So he was operating out of flesh and not out of spirit. And some of y'all don't realize this yet, because maybe you haven't grown up in the spirit. But there's going to be a point in your life where it even says in Corinthians, it says, do not deprive one another. And it's talking about sexually. Yes, when it comes to God and life, when it comes to relationship, he's going to talk to you about sex. So stop being so defiled and sensitive about it. He's going to talk to you about sex at some point. And when you enter into that arena, that marriage arena, and he starts telling you not to deprive one another. And so even though you might feel a little drift between you and your partner, you might be emotional, sometimes because of the obedience of the Spirit of God, you got to have sex with your partner. And that's who God is. But some of y'all really don't understand that there is nothing off limits to who God is, and God created all things. And then he's going to give you righteous instruction on how to do these things in your life. Just like he gave Onan the righteous instruction, but he was disobedient. And how wicked is it really to literally someone tell you to go into your brother's wife just so he can have offspring, but you just decide to go have sex with your brother's wife and not even give her the point of why you there. It was for her to have children. That's wicked, and he deserved to be pronounced to death. And so, like I said, do nothing from selfishness or empty conceit, but with humility of mind, regard one another as more important than yourselves. Regard one another as more important than yourselves. This is what Onan was missing, is that he was deciding that he was more important than his brother. He was more important than his brother. Do not merely look out for your own personal interests, but also for the interest of others. We have to be, our mindset and our why has to incorporate the interest of others. It can't be just about you. And so, like I said, him pronouncing him to death was right on spot with who God is. I got more for you. Let's keep going. Romans 2:5-8, it says, but because of your stubbornness and unrepentant heart, you are storing up wrath for yourself in the day of wrath and revelation of the righteous judgment of God, who will render to each person according to his deeds. To those who by perseverance in doing good seek for glory and honor and immortality, eternal life. But to those who are selfishly ambitious and do not obey the truth, but obey righteousness, wrath, and indignation. I'm going to read the end of that again. But to those who are selfishly ambitious and do not obey the truth, but obey unrighteousness, wrath, and indignation. Understand for real. Selfishness is a key point, a key discernment of darkness in someone who is moving in wickedness in their life. We have to rise above selfishness, and that's the truth. Now I'm going to read the next set of scriptures with this Romans. It says Romans 2:9-10. There will be tribulation and distress for every soul of man who does evil, of the Jew first and also of the Greek. But glory and honor and peace to everyone who does good, to the Jew first and also to the Greek. And so he's saying there will be tribulation and distress for every soul who does evil. For every soul who does evil. And I talked about this a second ago about the difference between ignorance and evil. It's one thing to be ignorant and you don't know what you're doing. God has grace for that. But when you know and you decide to do the opposite, there is no grace for that, and you evil and you wicked. And that's the truth. And so we have to understand that evilness is not acceptable. Evilness is not acceptable. Ignorance, God has grace for that. And we talked about that in prior lessons before. But wickedness and evil of willingly going against God, no, it's not there. 2 Corinthians 1:9, and this also, I want to bring this to your forefront as you read this story to bring it home for us today. Because some of y'all read this story, you're like, oh, pronounced to death and he took his life. And he's like, this isn't who God is today. Yes, it is. 2 Corinthians 1:9, indeed, we had the sentence of death within ourselves, so that we would not trust in ourselves, but in God who raised the dead. This death sentence he's talking about over and over again in the Old Testament is a death sentence within yourself he's talking about. Within you. So yes, you read the story, somebody he took his life. Yes, he takes your life the same way. He takes your life the same way when you move in selfishness. When you decide to be disobedient because you want what you want over what he's telling you to do. Yes, he does. He does pronounce you as dead in death. Yes, he does do that. And it's a sentence of death within ourselves. It's within you. It is not a physical death. It's a spiritual death that he's pronouncing on you. And so you have to understand that these stories are so important. I hope this ups your mindset is why this story is so important now. Because you read it and you're like, oh, pronounced to death. Oh, he took his life. Well, that's who God used to be. Nah, it's who he is today. That's who he is today. He will give you a sentence of death for your disobedience. And that's the truth. Genesis 38:11-13 says, Then Judah said to his daughter-in-law Tamar, Remain a widow in your father's house until my son Shelah grows up. For he thought, I am afraid that he too may die like his brothers. So Tamar went and lived in her father's house. Now after a considerable time, Shua's daughter, the wife of Judah, died. And when the time of mourning was ended, Judah went up to his sheep shearers at Timnah, he and his friend Hira the Adulamite, and it was told to Tamar, Behold, your father-in-law is going to Timnah to shear his sheep. And so let's talk about what just happened in this situation, okay? So what just happened. And the one thing I want to point out is Judah, okay? Because he sends Judah away, and he sends Tamar away and says, hey, I want you to go ahead and be, go and be a widow and stay at your father's house until my son grows up, right? But he literally says that he does this out of two things. He does it out of fear. And as he does it out of fear, he's also being deceptive towards her. Because he's scared that if he gives another one of his sons to her, that he's going to die. But little does he know, it hasn't been about his sons. It hasn't been about her. It's been about his son's wickedness. Er's wickedness. Onan's wickedness. It wasn't about the girl. And this is sometimes how I actually love this, because we can oftentimes blame a woman for why all these men are falling down and coming to death and distress in their life. But it was because of their own wickedness coming across a woman of righteousness can also be why the men keep falling in their life. And it don't have to be the woman. Sometimes the men's wickedness as to why they are falling at the side of a woman every time that they come across this woman. And so, like I said, he says this in this situation. He says, for he thought, I am afraid that he too may die like his brothers. I want to point out the spirit that he's operating in right now. For you have not received the spirit of slavery leading to fear again, but you have received the spirit of adoption as sons, by which we cry out, Abba, Father. And so we have to understand that this fear comes from a spirit of slavery. And it comes from a spirit of fearing punishment and fearing consequences. But if they were walking right, there's no fear to be had. But we have to understand, like I said, it wasn't about the woman. And Judah tried to look at the woman and try to make it about the woman. It wasn't about the woman. It was about his sons and their wickedness. Genesis 38:14-15 says, So she removed her widow's garment and covered herself with a veil and wrapped herself and sat in the gateway of Anaim, which is on the road to Timnah, for she saw that Shelah had grown up and she had not been given to him as a wife. When Judah saw her, he thought she was a harlot, for she had covered her face. So what's happening right now is that what happened right now in this situation was about so I'm sorry, I'm getting my names mixed up right now. Oh, Tamar. So listen, so Tamar sees clearly that Shelah grows up, right? And sees that she was not given to him as a wife. And so when she sees that she wasn't given to him as a wife, that's the thing about her. Like, we have to understand, and Judah's going to point this out in a second, that this woman is actually very righteous in this situation. Very righteous. Because she's given herself to this man And so when she's giving herself to this man the only righteous place for her to be sexually active or even have children with is within this family. It's within that family for real. And so she sees that Sheila grows up, and this thing is that she went all this time not giving herself to a single soul. Righteous. This woman is righteous if you ain't understanding right now. This woman literally went years for this boy to grow up, stayed a widow in her father's house. For Judah to trick her and never even give her to him. That's wicked. And it's very hurtful for real. And so I can really, if you really be honest with yourself, you can really feel this woman's pain in this situation like this, like for real. You can really feel this woman's pain in this situation. Imagine deciding to be chaste and hold yourself down and not give yourself to anybody and decide to be faithful with your body and say that, I'm saving myself for this person that I know I'm supposed to righteously give myself to. And then you see the person grow up after years. We're talking about like 10 years. You see the person grow up and they're not yours. They weren't given to you. And so what does she do? She decides to cover herself with a veil and wrap herself in the gateway and wrapped herself and sat in the gateway of Enaim, which is on the road to Timnah. For she saw that Sheila had grown up, for she had not been given to him as a wife. When Judah saw her, he thought that she was a harlot, for she had covered her face. And so then Judah is coming back down from the road from Timnah, where he went to shear the sheep. And he sees Tamar sitting on the side of the road. Now, he doesn't see that it's Tamar because her face is covered with the veil at this point. She's covered up. But he thinks that she's a harlot because the way she's covered up in this manner. He believes she's a harlot. If you don't know what a harlot is, a prostitute, okay? And so Genesis 38, 16 and 17 says, so he turned aside to her by the road and said, here now, let me come into you. If you don't know what come into you means, it means let me have sex with you. For he did not know that she was his daughter-in-law. And she said, what will you give me that you may come into me? He said, therefore I will send you a young goat from the flock. She said, moreover, will you give a pledge until you send it? And so in this situation, that right now it's being pointed out that he did not know that she was his daughter-in-law, because he would have been very wrong to have sex with this girl if he knew. If he knew, but he did not know. And we'll get into that in a second about what you know and what you don't know. But he did not know. That line is very important, that he did not know that this was his daughter-in-law. He didn't know that. And so basically, she says this, and she's like, well, what will you give me if you want to have sex with me? Like, what are you going to give me to have sex with me, right? And so then he said, what pledge shall I give you? And she said, your seal and your cord and your staff that is in your hand. So she didn't ask for money. She didn't ask for a bunch of stuff. She said, no, just give me your seal, give me that cord, and give me that staff. Now, there's a reason why she's doing this, because she's not trying to pull him over. She really just wants her children that she was promised through this family. That's really what she wants. And it's not an unrighteous desire either. But that's really what she wants, right? So he gave them to her and went into her, had sex with her. And she conceived by him. Then she arose and departed and removed her veil and put on her widow's garments. When Judah sent the young goat by his friend the Adullamite to receive the pledge from the woman's hand, he did not find her. And so she gets up from this situation and she removes the scarf and stuff. And she goes back and puts back on her widow's garment, so to signify that she's a widow again, right? Now, he sends out the young goat by his friend, the Adullamite, to receive the pledge from the woman's hand. He did not find her. So they can't find this woman anymore because she's not dressed the same. She's not the same. She was just putting on that just to sit by that road, just to have that encounter with Judah. Now, he asked the man of her place, saying, where is the temple prostitute who was by the road at Enaim? But they said, there has been no temple prostitute here. So he returned to Judah and said, I did not find her. And furthermore, the men of the place said, there has been no temple prostitute here. Then Judah said, let her keep them. Otherwise, we will become a laughing stock. After all, I sent this young goat, but you did not find her. So basically, he gives up his pursuit of finding this woman because they're saying that, no, there is no temple prostitute. There isn't one here. And he can't find her. He's like, I don't want to be embarrassed trying to search for this prostitute around town. Just let her keep it, and we can just keep moving on with our lives. Now it was about 3 months later that Judah was informed, your daughter-in-law Tamar has played the harlot, and behold, she is also a child by harlotry. Then Judah said, bring her out and let her be burned. It was while she was still being brought out. It was while she was being brought out that she sent to her father-in-law saying, I am with child by the man to whom these things belong. And she said, please examine and see whose signet ring and cords and staff are these. And so this actually was in her life. She knew that if she was to become pregnant, she knew that she needed some type of proof that, no, listen, I did not do this out of harlotry. Because obviously they were burning women for being involved in harlotry, and harlotry is a way of life worth the sentence of death by God. And so we know that this is a wickedness to move in harlotry. And so she's become pregnant. But it's also the crazy thing. When I say this story is really crazy, because this is also the crazy thing about men, okay? Judah goes and has sex with someone he thinks is a harlot. And then when he finds out that his daughter-in-law has been doing harlotry, he says we should burn her. What about the woman that you thought that the other harlot? I'm confused. But this is the hypocrisy of men in life also. But it's just also this is just life. And this is how we learn about life is through his word. So it says, it was while she was being brought out that she sent to her father-in-law saying, I am with child by the man to whom these things belong. And she said, please examine and see whose signet ring and cords and staff these are. So she has this proof. Judah recognized them and said, she is more righteous than I. Inasmuch as I did not give her to my son Shelah. And he did not have relations with her again. So listen to what Judah said. She is more righteous than I. She's more righteous than I. Now, this story to the flesh, if a fleshy person look at this story, you're going to say, nah, Tamar is fried. She's I don't even know what you're going to call her. All types of names. But no, she was the righteous person in this story. She was the one who stayed chaste with her body. She was the one who was faithful to this family and giving herself to bringing forth offspring from this bloodline that she had given herself to. She was the righteous one in this scenario. But Judah literally recognized them and said, she is more righteous than I. Inasmuch as I did not give her to my son Shelah, and he did not have relations with her again, it came about that time she was giving birth, that behold, there were twins in her womb. Moreover, it took place while she was giving birth. One put out a hand, and the midwife took and tied a scarlet thread on his hand, saying, this one came out first. Now, we'll continue this story in a second. There's some things I want to talk about real quick. And we're going to talk about the judgment of God real quick. The judgment of God. The judgment of God, the judgment of God, the judgment of God. Okay? So Leviticus 18:14-16 says that this is the law. Okay? This is the law. This is his law. That he says these things are worth death. Okay? You shall not uncover the nakedness of your father's brother. You shall not approach his wife. She is your aunt. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your daughter-in-law, for she is your son's wife. You should not uncover her nakedness. You should not uncover the nakedness of your brother's wife. It is your brother's nakedness. Now, this is something we have to come to understand is that, like, obviously he says, you shall not uncover the nakedness of your daughter-in-law. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your daughter-in-law. So it was wrong for him to have sex with his daughter-in-law. But I told you this is wise because what comes from me is my bone and my flesh. And so to uncover your son's wife is to uncover your son's nakedness. I don't think y'all understand that. But that's also why adultery, in a sense of having sex with someone else's wife, is such a big deal. Like, you don't understand that in God's eyes, when you have sex with somebody's wife, you're having sex with that man. I don't know if y'all really understand that. Y'all be in the streets parading, talking about some, oh, homosexuals going to hell, and blah, 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 all this stuff. And you having sex with somebody's wife, in God's eyes, you having sex with that man. Just so you know. Just so you know. Just so you know. Just so you know. I'll say it again for you. Just so you know. And so you have to understand how deep this really is, but why it's right. You have to ask the questions and have the understanding to know that you are doing right in the situation that you bring yourself into. Is this woman really giving to somebody else? Is this woman really giving to somebody else? Because the reality is, in God's eyes, I'm telling you the truth right now. You uncover that woman's nakedness, now you uncovering your brother's nakedness. And so in his eyes, it's just as you were having sex with that man. And that's the truth. Now, I brought this scripture to also show you the grace of God in this story, though. Because Judah was not pronounced a death. He did not take his life because he said he did evil in his sight. So let's talk about why that is, though. Proverbs 24:12 says, if you say, see, we did not know this, does he not consider who weighs the hearts? And does he not know it who keeps your soul? And will he not render to man according to his work? And so it literally says that Judah did not know that was his daughter-in-law. He didn't know. And so this scripture is being very upfront that God is not judging you based on what you don't know. Now, the reason why Onan was pronounced a death was because he knew what he was supposed to do. He knew who the girl was. He knew, and he was disobedient. Judah did not know. He did not know. And so he was not guilty from that sexual act in that manner and what happened in that situation. He wasn't guilty. And so, now I'm going to go into this right here because I want to talk about this. Because this is also the great thing about Judah, though. Because Judah did show some righteousness in this situation. Because he did not know that was his daughter-in-law, right? He didn't know. So God wasn't judging for what he knew. But once he found out, it said that he did not have relations with her anymore. So once he knew, he decided to do right. And he didn't decide to keep having sex with her. Although it says in this Bible that anyone who joins himself into a prostitute makes himself one with her, for the two should become one flesh. And so although we know that sexual act joins the two as one, but he knew that this woman was his daughter. Once he knew it was his daughter-in-law, he said, no, I'm not continuing in this wickedness. I'm going to do right. And that's the greatest thing about Judah in this story, is that once he knew, he decided to do right. And so Hebrews 10:20-27 says, for if we go on sinning willfully after receiving knowledge of the truth, there no longer remains a sacrifice for sins, but a terrifying expectation of judgment and the fury of a fire which will consume the adversaries. And so the thing is that once we receive knowledge of the truth, we cannot go on sinning willfully. You can't. There no longer remains a sacrifice for sins, but a terrifying expectation of judgment and the fury of a fire which will consume the adversaries. Like literally, he's going to be saying to you, once you've been told the truth, you've got to do right by the truth that you've been told. You got to do right. Which was what Judah did. And that's what also shows the grace of God in our lives, that when we're ignorant, God isn't judging us. But once we know, we got to do right. And that's the good thing about Judah in this situation, is once he knew, he did right. Genesis 38:29-30 says, but it came about as he drew back his hands. And now we're going back to the children that were being born. So it said that one stuck his hand out first, and then they tied a cord around to signify which one came out first. But then he said he put his hand back in. But it came about as he drew back his hand that behold, his brother came out. Then she said, what a breach you have made for yourself. So he was named Perez. Afterward, his brother came out who had the scarlet thread in his hand, and he was named Zerah. And so I'm gonna wrap this up with this last verse, and we'll be done for the day. This is Matthew 1:3, and then going down to verse 16. It says, Judah was the father of Perez and Zerah by Tamar. Perez was the father of Hezron, and Hezron the father of Ram. Now, going all the way down to verse 16, Jacob was the father of Joseph, the husband of Mary, by whom Jesus was born, who was called the Messiah. This Matthew 1 passage, this area of scriptures, is about the genealogy of Jesus through the Old Testament. And so we have to understand that the child Perez that came from this situation was an ancestor of Jesus Christ. And so from this one woman's obedience moved forward the will of God. But look at what she had to go through. Like, really think about what she went through. This one woman's obedience moved forward the will of God. This one woman's obedience moved forward the will of God. And she almost got burnt on fire for it. They called her a harlot. Everybody, all the men that touched her died. And they were looking at her like she was a bad omen. But no, she was righteous. And that one woman's obedience and righteousness moved forward the will of God. But in order to do the will of God, you cannot care about people's opinions. You can't care about people's opinions. But like I said, this is the end of this talk. Trusting God, the righteousness of God. And really the point of this talk was just to show how his thoughts are not our thoughts and his ways are not our ways. And so we have to understand that what's right in his eyes is not what's right in our eyes. A lot of us will read that story without the understanding of Jesus Christ and his teachings. You would read that story and be like, wow, this girl Tamar is a terrible girl to be around. Or you'd be like, this girl Tamar is wicked. She done tricked her own stepdad, her own father-in-law. But no. The righteousness of God is not the righteousness of man. And we have to understand and believe that in order for us to be right with God. Because you can't be right with God trying to be righteous by live by the righteousness of men. Only by the righteousness of God can one be made right with God. And so, family, this is the end of today's talk. I hope you got something good from it. I hope you can come to understand a little bit better about the righteousness of God and just how his thoughts are our thoughts and his ways are our ways. Everyone have a blessed day. We're back on here tomorrow at noon for our Stronger in God's Word class. Have a blessed day.